Hey my dudes, my name is Cecilia and welcome to my kitchen here in Stockholm, Sweden. Today is the 9th day of our 12 days of Christmas and we are making VANILJKOLA. VANILJKOLA means vanilla caramels, and I actually got this recipe from a bakery I worked at in San Francisco, but I decided to have a Swedish title on this video because I got a theme going on here. These are super buttery and chewy and I'm completely addicted. Let's get started.
For this recipe, you will need a large pot and a candy thermometer or an instant read thermometer. Line a small baking dish with parchment. I find it easiest to crinkle up the parchment so it sits nicely in the pan. Into a large pot, pour 400 grams of cream, 400 grams of sugar, 40 grams of honey, and 240 grams of glucose. Scrape the seeds out of one vanilla pod. You can dehydrate and save the pod for another project. Add the scraped vanilla to the pot. Place the pot on the stove on medium-high heat. Stir continuously so that it doesn't stick and burn. Bring to 116 degrees Celsius or 241 degrees Fahrenheit. As soon as it hits 116, throw in 20 grams of butter. Keep stirring and bring the caramel to 118 degrees Celsius or 245 degrees Fahrenheit. At 118, turn off the heat, add in 1 gram of salt, stir to combine, and then immediately pour into the baking dish. Let sit on the counter overnight. I have a very specific way of making wrapping papers for caramels. I have done this in many restaurants and bakeries, and this is the fastest way. Take pieces of parchment and fold them in half. Press down the edge with your offset and then slide through. Continue folding and sliding through until you have your desired size of paper. This way is fast, easy, and you get straight lines.
It's been 24 hours, my papers are cut, my caramel is crystallized, and now we just pop it out. So you can see it's now like totally solid. And like it does come off of the paper really easily. It's real soft and squishy, but that's what I like. That's what makes it really chewy. Save this paper. I like to put it out next to me. And then we're gonna cut. What you wanna use is a really big, dull pastry knife. If you've seen my videos, you know that this is my best friend. This is why. This is why we have a dull pastry knife, is for things like this. So now I just have to figure out how big I wanna cut them. In a bakery situation, I would measure these like with a ruler, or I would scale each and every one of them. But I'm at home, so I don't care as much. I have in here a little bit of oil. I don't have spray fat, so this is kind of my like workaround. Normally, I would just like spray this with a little bit of oil, but I don't have that. It's not strictly necessary, but it will help this glide through a little bit better. And then you just cut it. That's that on that. There we go, and one more. It's gonna wanna stick a little bit, but that's why you just like go under and see how they just lift up. And then we're just gonna cut this way. I find it nice to move them to the parchment paper because as they like sit on the wood, they will stick to the wood more. See, like these ones that I cut like 2 seconds ago, they're already like stuck back together. So it's important to separate and move them like as soon as they're cut. If you were to leave these on the paper overnight, you would see that they would eventually they kind of settle because they're so soft. I personally like them this chewy. I find that when they're harder, that's when you start to get into like break your teeth kind of category. And I don't want these to be like hard caramels that you like suck on. Like these are supposed to be chewy, but not like, these aren't gonna break your teeth. They're too soft for that. I think I've made some variation of caramels at like basically every job I've ever had. I used to work at the French Laundry very briefly, and the pastry chef there was super intense but really cool. And he would make all of the pastry girls make caramel, but like by feel. So no thermometer, you just had to kind of like test it with like cold water and just kind of like get a feel for it just to like improve our skills. And so I always think of him when I do stuff like this, and I have like thermometers everywhere. I could do this without, it'd be better for my skills, but I'm not gonna waste caramel, because if we had any that were like too hard or too soft, he would just be like, throw it away, do it over. and then you'd have to throw it away and do it over. Now time for the fun part. I love wrapping caramels. I just think it's really, really fun. So I have my brown pieces of parchment here. All you do is you take your little caramel, boop, and then you just roll it up in there. Oops, I didn't do that very well. Roll it on up in there. And then you twist. And then you twist the other way. And then I kind of like to press the sides down so they become nice and flat, and then boom. These are really big pieces of parchment because I really like to have cute little tail ends on my caramels. And also like this caramel, this one is gonna need a much bigger wrapper than like this one, but because I'm not measuring it either by scaling it or by like using a ruler, I have cut my papers a little bit bigger to kind of compensate for the unevenness of my caramels. Because you know what? We're at home, right? We're doing this for Christmas, for our own joy. Why use a ruler and math when we don't have to, right? And then obviously the efficient way to do this is to put all of your papers out like this, and then just go through and I have one last caramel that doesn't have a wrapper, which is perfect because then I get to eat him. It's so chewy. It's so good, and it has so much like vanilla in it. And you could very easily make these like sea salt caramels by just like boop, 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 with a little bit of sea salt on top. Like boom. My dentist hates me for this. Like legitimately, dentists like are very freaked out by me. Every time I get a new dentist, which like I've moved a lot in my 20s, so I've had a lot of new dentists, and they always ask you like, how much sugar do you eat? And I'm like, literally every day, multiple times a day, it's my job. And they just have this like look of horror on their face. Like it's a problem. TMI, but there you go. Bad for your teeth, good for your heart. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this week's episode, then please like and subscribe. And I hope you have a good week and happy holidays. Hejdå!